American Graduate Community Town Halls are part of American Graduate Let's Make It Happen, a public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Major support for WHRO's American Graduate Initiative provided by Norfolk State University.
They drop off because they think no one cares.
We should be more involved in our students' education.
Students need intervention, not retention.
After-school activities build a community that can care for the students.
And the support system isn't there, so they're not talking to each other. And without talking to each other, the kids are just lost.
Good evening from the WHRO Public Media Studios in Norfolk, Virginia. Hi everyone, I'm Barbara Hamley, the executive producer and host of Another View and your moderator for this American Graduate Community Town Hall. WHRO has been a part of the American Graduate Project for the past 3 years. This is a long-term public media commitment supported by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to help communities implement solutions to the high school dropout crisis. Prior to tonight's town hall, nearly 100 stakeholders participated in community conversations that were held on the peninsula and the south side of Hampton Roads. This gave us an opportunity to collect your views and thoughts about what the challenges students in our region face and what we as a community can do to help them overcome those obstacles and graduate on time. During those conversations, several themes consistently rose to the top. A better process for volunteers to access schools and more effective use of their skills. A system for matching school and student needs with community resources. And the use of school and community facilities for support programs. Our goal is to formulate a set of recommendations that can guide us as we work together to improve student outcomes. While we may not all agree this evening, we have all agreed to be very polite and respectful of each other's comments. So let's get right to it. So audience, welcome, first of all. Glad you all are here. We talked about volunteer accessibility in schools, and during the community conversations, people said things like the barriers. Some of the comments, the volunteer process is too confusing. Background checks take too long. Too many volunteers can jeopardize our schools. Sometimes schools are scrambling to put groups of volunteers to work, while at other times teachers may need volunteers for something specific and somehow they never connect. Has anyone experienced that? What do you think about volunteering in the schools? Who wants to start? Yes. Give us your name and the city you're from, please.
Sure. I'm Angela Bernard. I'm here in Norfolk. I'm the parent of 2 high school boys in Norfolk, and also have a lot of experience with volunteering in the community. And I recognize that there are a lot of parents who want to be involved, particularly in the high school area, and it's hard for us. Sometimes we're seen as an imposition, a disruption in the school day. But at the same time, working at a nonprofit, I also realize that organizing and working with volunteers is a full-time job for someone, and it's not something that we should be expecting our teachers to have to take on. That if the schools want to utilize volunteers, there needs to be someone in that capacity to take on that responsibility to work with parents or community members who want to be volunteers.
Now, I can hear, thank you for that comment. I can hear, you know, school teachers out there going, oh, come on, that's one more thing you want me to do. Should that be a position? Should that be a position? How about you, Michael?
Michael Lee, Virginia Beach. I don't think that should be placed upon the teachers. As the other speaker mentioned, someone to coordinate that would be wonderful, you know, and if the teacher needs some help, they can go through the coordinator on the help they need. If they have a student that's struggling with a subject, be it math, reading, then coordinate it through a volunteer with that volunteer assistant.
Yes. Amelia Hammond Ross, who is the councilwoman here at in Virginia Beach.
Yes, one thing I do, as a hat I wear, is at Norfolk State University. We have the service learning and civic engagement, where we take some of the university students and they go out in the community and help to mentor some of the students in the schools. And it works pretty well because when we go out there, we connect with someone at the school, find out and identify what's going on for that student. And sometimes we come during the day, and sometimes we do this after school. So that works pretty well.
Is it difficult, though, when you go into the school to convince them that, you know, we're really here to help?
Well, one of the things I do is do a pre-visit where I can sit with, like at Ingleside or some of the other schools, we sit with the principal, explain what we do, that this is academic based, and we try to get students who have similar background. For example, if it's a math student who's really good at that, or English and so forth. We even had a situation at one of the schools at Campus Stellar where they had little kids who wouldn't say a word. And they were wondering, well, we brought a student from English and foreign language who spoke Spanish. And so she spoke Spanish to her, and suddenly she opened up and said, oh, you speak Spanish in English. But you see, that was that connection suddenly that opened up for encouraging that student to learn.
So you really need to make that connection.
You need to make the connection.
Who thinks that a high school is not necessary to have mentors or volunteers in the high school? A gentleman in the back.
My name is Gregory Dare. I'm a community director in Hampton, Virginia, in a public housing community. First of all, I do think that high school is a wonderful place for mentors and tutoring and sort of near-peer mentoring, so to speak. I worked for an organization called City Year DC, which is an organization under the AmeriCorps umbrella, and what that organization provided was mentors and tutors following a classroom of students, a cohort, if you will, and provided in-class support for the teachers. And not only did that sort of reinforce what the teachers were implementing in the classroom, but it also showed the students that there was somebody their age that finished high school, went on to college, and that actually cares enough to go into these schools and say that, hey, your education is important and I'm here to help you. So the community really can make a difference in also showing a role model, serving as a role model. Without doubt. Without that. As a matter of fact, we talk about some mentoring programs, and Ms. Ross Hammond brought up a mentoring program at Norfolk State. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. This program is being applauded here in Norfolk as the League of Extraordinary Men. This mentoring tutoring program was developed by a group of young men from Norfolk State University who spend their Wednesday and Thursday evenings tutoring students at Chesterfield Academy. WHRO's Lisa Godley takes us behind the scenes.
For these students at Norfolk's Chesterfield Academy, this is much more than a pickup after-school basketball game. For them, it's an opportunity to spend time with mentors who have a vested interest in how they turn out.
Like I said, if you're not doing well in class, you can't ball, right?
Jeremy Simmons is the president of the League of Extraordinary Men, a group of Norfolk State University students who've made it their mission to give back to their community.
That's an area where I was lacking as a child. That's what I was missing, guidance, right guidance, honestly. African-American males in my community was praised for doing other things.
Simmons says immediately when he walks in, he can tell if one of the students has had a bad day.
And we always tell them that you're not just coming here to play basketball, you come here to get a life lesson. I want to make sure your family is doing okay. So that way, I know how to deal with the situation accordingly.
It really helped me from doing bad things outside of school, so I'll be in school doing an activity.
The school's counselor, Nicole Bly, couldn't be happier with the program.
The boys, they love it. They meet on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 every week, and it just helps create a bond for them. It's a great program.
They help a lot with life, not just basketball.
For Chesterfield Academy, mixing sports and mentoring together is a winning combination.
1, 2, 3,
For WHRO Public Media, I'm Lisa Godley.
And we are so excited that members of that group, Extraordinary Men, would you all stand up, please? And could you all give them a round of applause? I want to ask you, why did you get involved?
Helping out in the community is very important because coming from the inner city, it was a struggle. It was a struggle, and I know that kids in the inner city and in Norfolk and just Hampton Roads area period, it can be hard. So I want to give my lessons back to the community, to whomever.
Thank you for that. And Jeremy, you were in the story itself.
Honestly, words can't describe the feeling I get when I see those children every day. And honestly, this was my teacher. So it kind of this is my teacher. So it kind of started in her class, in her humanities class at Norfolk State University, and it just honestly blew up. And they allowed us to come in their school and give their children a chance. They gave us a chance. Like you said, one word I would say is dedication. If you have to go through background checks or whatever the case may be, it should not matter. Those children's lives matter. And I understood that just the way my brothers do, that I came from basically nothing. So I'm giving my life lessons that I learned along the way, my journey, my struggles that I went through so they wouldn't have to. And that's what we're trying to teach them. We're not just playing basketball with them. We're teaching them life lessons, like don't get down on yourself. If somebody says something to you, just keep playing through it. That's what we're doing. We're incorporating that through our lessons.
That's fantastic. I want to ask you, can you just talk to us about how, because the community, from the conversations that we've had, a lot of times they were saying, we feel like we're blocked out, that we really want to do what these young men are doing. We want to get in there, but the schools aren't receiving us. How did you do it?
Well, my name is Nicole Bly, and I am the school counselor at Chesterfield Academy. You know, Norfolk State University is right across the street from my school. So because of that, you know, we have students that come in our school all the time looking to volunteer. And Jeremy actually came to our school, you know, when the students were not even there yet. He came in and said, hey, I want to come in. I want to do something, you know, with your students here. And we made it happen. So, you know, he's right. You know, the background checks and things of that nature shouldn't necessarily matter. It is a process. It does sometimes, you know, take a long time. There is only one person right now in Norfolk that handles the whole background check process, but you know, it's worth the wait. If you're able to get, you know, mentors in your school or tutors in your school to help your students, you know, definitely do it because it makes a difference. You saw on the video how excited those boys were to see them. And every day that they come, they are truly excited and they're dedicated. And I just truly appreciate everything that they have done for the students at my school.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you all. I want to ask, and I don't want to ignore this side of the room, so I want to ask you all, is there anyone else that has had an experience wanting to go into a school, wanting to do something, and not being able to? Yes.
I'm Barrett Hicks. I'm the executive director for a group called Tagwood Connection Concerned Citizens. What we've done is actually look for the alternative method of going around that, like partnering with the City of Norfolk, Department of Recreation, with Mr. Crittenden and his program. And actually, we've started a after-school tutorial program right there in the recreation center, because of the fact that maybe sometimes, you know, it takes a little extra time trying to get directly into the school. So we say, well, let's find other avenues. So we have created, like I said, an after-school program at the Boys and Girls Club and the recreation centers. Combining the resources of recreation and education, I think, is key, because again, we've got to meet our children where they are. And we know that there's a couple of areas that we know. They're going to church, recreation, and school. We combine those resources, we make a difference, we change the dynamic of our communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So is there anyone who would say, that's all fine and good, but where's the parental involvement in this? Why should I get involved if the parents aren't involved? Anybody want to respond to that? Yes, Mr. Crittenden.
Daryl Crittenden, City of Norfolk. We're very blessed. Our city manager, Marcus Jones, provides each city employee 4 hours of leave time to volunteer in the schools. And why I say that basically is because a lot of us care, we have a passion for the city, and all the kids in the city actually come under our auspices. So we want to make sure that, one, we provide caring adults. We want to make sure that we care about their progress. But the most important thing is making sure that those youth see people that care about them and that we want to go into the schools to see them succeed. And I guess the biggest thing we need to realize on the recreation side, as Barrett said, not only are our after-school and tutorial programs working to help kids, but we got to recognize all of our youth coaches, because not only do our youth coaches provide recreational opportunities, but they check grades, they adhere to standards, and actually provide discipline, because without discipline, kids can't get through school. And you can't always depend on parents. It's sad because we've had an economic downturn, and a lot of parents have to work. There could be a single parent at home who's working 2 or 3 jobs, so they have to turn to alternate parents or surrogate parents like a coach, like an adult mentor, and these parents provide that guidance and discipline for them to get through.
Okay, that's fantastic. I hear, as a matter of fact, during our community conversation, we also asked the question about parents and their involvement. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
We do workshops for the parents. We visit the parents on their territory, in their homes, to try to help them get engaged in the school. And we visit the schools to find out what's going on in the school, then relay that back to the parents so they will be more involved and know exactly where their children are.
So her whole point was sometimes we have to go to the parents. We have to educate the parents as well as educating the students. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Joe Cook from Norfolk. And I was thinking about this conversation we're going to have tonight coming over here. And you know, one of the biggest correlations between student dropout rate is poverty in the home. And you talk about parents not being able to participate, having to work 2 or 3 jobs. I think one of the things that ought to enter this conversation is a living wage for everybody so that they get out of poverty. That'll make a big difference in parents being able to be better parents, and students and families being able to live in better neighborhoods. And affordable housing is another thing. They need to live in decent neighborhoods in order to succeed in school.
Okay. I live in the city of Norfolk, but I want to hear from some people who are in other cities in Hampton Roads.
Hi, my name is Linda Winoker, and I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia. And so I think our kids today have lost that idea that education is the hope for something better.
So we as a community need to address that. I want to talk to you, Judge Olds, because Judge Eileen Olds is with Chesapeake Juvenile Domestic Relations Court. So you see people in a whole different, or young people in a situation where we hope you wouldn't see them because you want them to be in school.
And I was about to jump in because, as the gentleman said, it's, and I don't speak for the government in terms of equalizing poverty and so forth, but I knew from a personal perspective that it was an issue in our courts. And oftentimes I would see juvenile delinquents, and as I read their social histories and looked at their backgrounds and so forth, I would find out that they had missed 50, 60 days of school, and I would think, goodness, if we had known that on the front end, then perhaps they would have never made it into the juvenile justice system. And so I instituted a truancy court, and I know that may sound punitive initially, but when we bring the students and the parents, and trust me, if you get a subpoena from the court, they generally show up. And so we have the undivided attention of the parent and the student. And at that first meeting, we simply talk. I explain to them there are no consequences. This is not punitive. I'm here to give you a warning and to let you know you're under the radar, but we intend to tackle this problem. And I'm so thrilled to say, after almost 10 years, we have in Chesapeake over a 80% success rate of the people that we bring into the court who were truant and at risk of being truant, and they have turned themselves around. So we've made a major
dent. That's fantastic. Congratulations. Congratulations. And you know, Judge Olds, you bring up a point, because one of the other major issues that were brought out in the community conversations is the idea of matching school, students, and family needs with community resources. And that's a clear indication of one. And there's another hot button issue this year on the peninsula, and it's an ordinance that limits the amount of time that people can live in hotels. Now, city leaders say it's a way to reduce crime, but advocates for homeless students see it as another challenge for the kids who call area hotels home. Lisa Godley shows us what one woman in the community is doing to help those in need.
The first time you see a school bus stop at one of the hotels, you'll always notice it. Once you are able to put a face to homelessness, you can't forget it.
You think she like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jamie Abbott has befriended homeless families who live at local hotels for close to 5 years. Her first encounter came after watching a school bus continuously stop at a motel up the street from her home.
We stopped in one day and we asked the management, do you have kids here? And they said, no, there's no kids here. It was around Christmas time, and one little girl poked her head out from behind a door, and all we had that year was a little green dinosaur. Sorry. And that's what we gave them.
Since then, Abbott has made it her mission to help those families. She founded Hotel Kids, and over the course of time has helped about 200 families. Some families live at hotels for a few weeks, others a few years.
The average is anywhere from $250 to $450 a week. So once you start paying that, you're stuck.
Abbott says that's why she was terrified when she learned that the city of Hampton had passed an ordinance limiting hotel stays.
We were afraid that they were going to be displaced even further and their stability was going to be in jeopardy even more.
We asked Hampton Assistant City Manager Jimmy Gray the purpose behind the ordinance. He told us the goal was to reduce crime.
Our housing services staff was prepared to address or assist any family that would become homeless as a result of that new ordinance. We tried to make it clear that it's not our intention to put people on the street or to close hotels, and we were prepared and are still prepared to help assist those families.
The challenge is families in need of help aren't seeking it.
They're completely afraid that their kids are going to be taken away by CPS, and no amount of assurance I can give them is enough.
The assistant city manager agrees with Abbott that the families have nothing to fear. In fact, Abbott says social services has agreed to go hotel to hotel to reach out to those frightened families, but she knows from personal experience that gaining their trust will take time.
It takes us months to find them, and it takes us additional months to get them to trust us. It's going to be very difficult to get them the help that they need.
For WHRO Public Media, I'm Lisa Godley.
And ladies and gentlemen, we're so happy to have Jamie Abbott with us here tonight. Let's give her a round of applause. So Jamie, you saw a need and you just decided to go out and do it and take care of it.
We did. It was me and my family. We've done it for about 5 years now, and we initially saw that first bus, and everybody told me that there weren't any kids there, and we can call a hotel 20 times, and the management will hang up on me and tell me there's no kids, and I can go there 4 or 5 times, and they tell me there's no kids, and then that last time I come, you can see a child that pokes their head out, or you can see a school bus that stops and drop them off. So they're everywhere. It's a national issue. It's not just here in Hampton.
Have you been dealing with the city of Hampton in terms of the new ordinance, and are there any changes planned?
There are actually changes that have occurred. When I went to the Hampton location you had for the town meeting there, in my little group was Linda Curtis, and she is the vice mayor of Hampton. And through that meeting that y'all facilitated, we've actually been able to effect change in Hampton. Department of Social Services now has a whole group that has been set aside and a whole department that's been created for our homeless kids. 3 people got new positions now. As of the 6th of this month, we are now partnered with the city of Hampton. We have started going out to a hotel. We went out on the 10th and we started intaking people and we started talking to them. And we started trying to break down some of those barriers that exist so that they know that Hampton's not trying to take their kids. And we've actually now been able to start doing effective change to the city where the city before wasn't talking to anybody. The people from the Department of Social Services did not even know that that a resource that they could get would be the transportation department in the school system. So through that meeting, we were able to sit there and connect the transportation department with social services. Now the transportation department can identify those children and social services can reach out to them and see where they are. And before that link didn't happen. It wasn't there.
So if you ever thought that one person can't make a difference, here's your proof. Thank you so much. Thank you. You know, you hear a lot of times people say the issue is that parents just need to take care of their kids. They just need to get it together, you know. But the issues that a lot of our students go through are insurmountable sometimes. What else can we do you think, as a community? What are some of the other ideas you all have in terms of what can the community do to make a difference? Betty Wade, can I ask you to stand and give us a thought?
I really think that we do too little too late, and I think almost everything that we do impacts whether our kids become successful in life. And I think it's important to start actually prenatally to deal with
building children's brains and engaging parents in the process of building their brains and educating them. It's not rocket science to sing to your baby or to talk to your child. And I think that we need to engage parents early on so that it'll be easier to engage them later on.
We actually have a tweet rather, that says, I'm a teacher and the biggest issue is parental involvement. We need education programs for the parents too. Mr. Lee, what do you think about that? Do we need education programs for parents?
I've always been a proponent of a parental university. I used to work in higher ed, so I never worked in K-12. But kids coming into higher education, you see the problems that teachers, the K-12 community has had to deal with. And a lot of it lacks parental involvement. But as everybody has heard so far, there are community resources within every community that people who want to do it, the young man at Norfolk State, I commend y'all. I commend y'all. How many people told y'all couldn't make it? The gentleman with the city of Norfolk and the recreation. Kids gonna play ball. They may not always go to church, okay, but they're gonna play ball, they're gonna participate in some kind of recreation. It's just having people who care. And we need to take a lot of the politics out of the school system saying that it can't be done, whereas it can be done.
Okay, thank you. Marjorie, yes. I want to get over here and get with you because you are a principal at a school. And so we can talk about what it will take to help out.
Yes, Marjorie Staley, principal of Norview High School here in Norfolk. Well, it takes a lot, really, to support our kids today. They come to us sometimes in need of a lot of support. Some of our kids are homeless. At our school, we have 20+ kids who are homeless on any given day. And I checked those lists, and you would be wonderfully surprised that every single one of those kids are academically successful and on point. And so what it takes is it takes us all working together. It can't just be the school, can't just be a volunteer. We all have to work together. And some of the solutions we haven't figured out yet, but as long as we come together in a format like this, and if I say I have these needs at our school, and you say you have these needs, or you have these folks in your community, let's figure out how we can work it together. It might not be, or it might not look like it was last year or 2 years ago or the last decade, but we have new issues and new problems. And I'm wonderfully optimistic because this is my 21st year, and I love doing what I do. And we have this expectancy in our school. We expect kids to be successful.
Can you tell us also about the Dyson Scholars?
The Dodson Scholars.
Dodson Scholars, yes.
Yes, Dodson Scholars is a group of African-American young men who have pledged that they will become honor graduates by the time they graduate. In 2000, we had not one African-American male who was eligible. Today, to graduate as an honor grad. Wow. Today, we have 94 African-American young men who are working at that. And every year for the last 5 years, all of our seniors have qualified for college, selected the college of their choice, have gone on scholarship, and last year our Dodson Senior Scholars earned $1.8 million.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. This lady here, tell us your name and the city you're from.
I'm Shamika Gerald. I'm from Newport News, Virginia. And we talk about parent involvement and what parents want to do. I find a lot of times, I'm an administrator in Newport News, and I work specifically with the academic program in my building. A lot of parents want to help their students, but don't know how to advocate on their child's behalf. So you can be in poverty, but still want your child to do better, but not have that academic background yourself to help your child succeed. So one of the things that I try to do is when we have parents come in with students who have behavioral issues that are affecting their academics, is try to teach them how to advocate on their students' behalf. You should go to your teacher if there aren't grades in the grade book, and you should ask them why there aren't grades there. Or if your child hasn't come to school in 6 days and you haven't received a phone call from the school, why is that happening? So ask those questions so that it doesn't get to 56 days and you're in truancy court. Those are things that we need to take care of on our end, but we also have to empower parents to learn those skills to advocate so that the school isn't as intimidating as it seems to be.
I was going to say, because sometimes it can be intimidating because the parents may not have the education and they may feel that they can't talk to you and make themselves known.
We don't bite. We really don't. It may seem like we do.
I don't want anyone to walk away from this broadcast thinking that this dropout issue is strictly an African American problem, because it's not. These are students from all over our area. Rural kids who live in rural areas have issues too.
Karen Bailey, the City of Norfolk. I'm the Career Transition Specialist for Job Corps, and we were speaking about resources earlier. And I feel as if part of the challenge with the issues that we're facing is that lack of awareness of the resources that are out here. There are so many things that are available, but there's a disconnect. It's a disconnect between those who have the resources and the very people that they have created those resources for. And so my company is the Resource King International, and I started that company because I saw that disconnect. And being the Career Transition Specialist for Job Corps, who offers the education component for anybody who has dropped out of school, they can go to Job Corps between ages of 16 and 24, and they can get their GED, they can get their high school diploma. It is a free federally funded program because there are so many things available for them for free.
Okay, thank you. The lady in the back with the black stripe.
Ashley Barano, I'm from Virginia Beach. I'm a librarian, and it really resonated with me when you mentioned prenatally, but also before they get to school, kids are growing up with fewer books in the home, especially if you're in poverty. Books are expensive. And if they were to come to the library and get the books and bring them into their homes, the kids could come to school and not have up to 1 million word deficits when they start school because they didn't grow up with books or parents knowing that you need to read to your kids. I think that in the past, decade, we've seen this move toward educational television, and that works to a certain extent, but you can't just educate with television. You still have to read to kids or use books and work toward, building skills before they get to school. You can't just rely on kindergarten to teach the skills. They need to start kindergarten with some skills already, and then they're not starting behind and moving into further levels and just constantly being behind.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andre Robinson. I'm also a proud member of the League of Extraordinary Men and also a student, sophomore at Norfolk State University. However, we were talking about the crisis and things that's going on in the community, and we talk about bridging the gaps. But first, my first point, what I like to make is one would have to be transparent. A student would know, and I myself was once a student at Warwick High School from Newport News, Virginia. A student can tell when one is being generic or when one is just doing it because it's just their job. The problem is, my lovely lady, is that we don't have enough leaders that really just have the heart and the genuine care to do this. I don't want to be a charity case. I need someone who actually cares about my well-being. Me, myself, I choose the latter. I dare to be different. I dare to change, which is why I could stand here today as the first person in my family to go to college and to be a scholar at that. And the reason why I also came from a single parent home. I didn't have my dad in my life. He wasn't proactive in my life. But also I didn't come to tell my testimony, but I came to give you a resolution. First of all, let's take off the shirts and the ties. Let's take off our cufflinks and let's get our hands dirty. And let's do the footwork instead of talking about what we should do instead of just walking into what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. This lady here, can we get a microphone over here, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Toya Sosa from Portsmouth, Virginia. And, we talk about how do we bridge the gap, and I believe that we need to make ourselves available where people are. We need to find the communities that are most in need, and then we need to work with the resources that are already there, all of the many different nonprofits and organizations that I've heard about tonight and that I know exist. We need to work with them to then create programs that are mobile to get all of these resources to them and not expect parents that may not have transportation or may not have the financial resources to come to you. I work with about 40 different organizations across our region through my company, GEICO, and corporate America, and we make sure that as we're meeting with these organizations that they are meeting the need, but also going where the need is.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Cook, and I'm from Norfolk. One of the biggest issues is that we have a one-size-fits-all curriculum for the students. It is so easy to get lost. I didn't come from a broken home. I had both of my parents, the bills were paid on time, but I still struggled in school. And it's because nobody has the time to dedicate to, individuals. We aren't individuals in the schools, we're numbers. We are jam-packed. There are 28 kids in a classroom, and a teacher can't focus on every single student the way they need to be focused on. And that's why it's so easy to get lost.
So that becomes an issue also. We had a gentleman here in the blue shirt. I think you had to.
My name is Leif Leiberg. I live in Virginia Beach, but I teach in Norfolk. One of the things, I'm a history teacher, and one of the things that I talk to my students about on a regular basis is this idea of ripple effects. Something happens and it has a ripple effect throughout, in our case, the community. So when we talk about bringing the community in, whether it's a teacher working with a student, whether it's a business owner working with a student, whether, any number of possibilities there, the ripple effect that touches those students is the idea that they all have value. And I think we've heard that a lot tonight. When they get that idea, when, if they're homeless or what have you, and they start to get down on themselves, and they might begin to think, oh gosh, where do I fit in here? Why should I bother continuing to try? As soon as we begin to build those relationships, the discovery that we have value, that's going to carry them forward.
I want to get Jonathan Zer, if you could bring the mic over.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Zer with the Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities. We serve both the Peninsula and Tidewater. And building on that, I think one of the big areas that we need to think about is the way our schools are structured to create a sense of belonging for students and educators and families. And one of the challenges is that they really don't create that environment. So parent-teacher conferences and back-to-school night for many families are a barrier, rather than a way that can be an entry point for students and families to feel successful. And so when we look at creating a sense of belonging, we're thinking about whether folks feel safe in school, whether they feel valued, whether they have a sense of power, whether they know they're learning, and whether they can make mistakes and not lose their dignity. And when they have those 5 things in school, students, educators, parents, and guardians can feel successful and they'll stay in school. If they don't have those things in school, they're looking for them outside of school, and that's where we see a big challenge.
And that's where the challenge comes in. Quentin, I want to also talk to you, if you can bring the mic over here to him, because you're with communities and schools. Sure. And if you could explain very briefly what that program is and how you are trying to bring those resources to the schools that the students need.
So communities and schools of Hampton Roads, and what we're talking about here, we're talking about bringing resources to schools, identifying the resources and making them impactful when they make their way to our schools. What communities and schools does, we fill that void. We identify the greatest need in our students and families, and we connect them to the appropriate resources in the community. Because everything that we're talking about here, everything that our students need, it's right here in this room. If we had enough time to let everyone speak, everything we need is right here. But the challenge is, how do we gain, or how do we get our parents and our families and our students the access to these appropriate resources and make sure that they're impactful when they make that connection? Because the worst thing you want to do is to pair a student or a family up with a resource and it's not making a positive difference. We want to ensure that when that
makes it they become even more discouraged
yes,
at that point.
And the system becomes more intimidating. And we help guide our parents and our families through that system, ensure that all of these resources and services are making an impact in our schools.
Okay. All right. Your name and your city, please.
Yes, my name is Bobby Huntley, Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm working with the Virginia Beach Public School System. I have a mentoring program called the Gentleman's Club, which is a character development mentoring program. And I've been doing the program for 9 years. And it's a very successful program. We've helped so many boys to become men. So far in 9 years, we've helped over 500 boys to become men, and they've done great in the community. They've gone on to college and do great things, entrepreneurs and of such. One of the things we teach them is how to wear their clothes properly. Our young men meet bi-weekly, first and third Tuesday of each month. They wear suits, shirts, and ties. We teach them how to tie a tie, teach them how to wear cufflinks and look good. My motto is, if you feel good, you look good. Amen. So I said amen because I'm also a pastor. I won't pass a collection plate around. But we build it from the inside. We're the only school in Virginia Beach that takes our young man to jail. One of the models that I have is that if you're not on the right path, you're on the wrong path. So we show them what jail looks like. And we want them to understand that there's a right way of doing things, there's a wrong way of doing things, so they know the alternative. But I'm very proud of the program. We've helped other schools to establish the Gentlemen's Club and other schools in Virginia Beach, and I'm looking to take this nationally. But it's a wonderful program. One year we were able to raise enough money to take our children to Washington, D.C. We toured the White House, and we also toured Martin Luther King's memorial. So it's just a wonderful thing, and the Gentlemen's Club is very active in Virginia Beach public school system.
Thank you for that. You know, we got a Facebook message that says, how can I get more involved in my child's school? I have offered to volunteer, but the staff just seems too busy to even get to me. So if you can't get in the schools, what other suggestions do you all have as a community to allow you to still volunteer? Let me get this gentleman first, since we've heard from you.
Good evening. My name is Jason Samuels, and I'm the program director for the Foster Grandparent Program, which provides volunteer opportunity for senior citizens age 55 and older to serve in public schools, especially elementary and Head Start centers. So there are volunteer opportunities available to individual who wants to serve. One of the barriers is that these information are not available to everyone. Sometimes, due to the fact that a lot of people are home, they don't have access to technologies and so forth. So one of the things that we need to do is to ensure that we utilize every avenue to publicize that these informations are available. But once again, these services are available to everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. You know, I didn't bring up the faith community, but can we utilize the faith community to get this word out? This gentleman here in the gray.
Richard Gall from Hampton. One of the things that I have always experienced, I've worked in this field for 40 years working with young people, is that there are, as we heard tonight, all over the community, there's wonderful programs. And they are wonderful programs, and they're all doing really good things. But the connections between these agencies are weak. A lot of that has to do with competition. And the funding sources put these programs at odds, so it's more difficult for them to sit down and say, how can we do this together? All of a sudden, the government or other funding sources are saying, well, we're funding you, we're not funding them, and those kinds of things. We really, as a community, have to look at how can we bring ourselves together, not just have isolated programs that are doing wonderful things.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kathy Johnson, Hampton, Virginia, and to piggyback on what was just said about how do we break down those barriers, I believe until we cannot see with fresh eyes until we examine the belief system by which we're looking at this problem. And I think the belief system that we frequently share is a belief system that schools are responsible, and that's the place where our children are educated. And that belief system is perpetuated by policy, it's perpetuated by funding sources. But in a knowledge-based society, young people that we work with in the nonprofit that I direct at Alternatives, they are telling us we learn everywhere. We learn in the museum, we learn on the internet, we learn in the recreation center, we learn in the church, we learn in the school, we learn in our neighborhood. And until we adopt a fundamental belief system that children learn everywhere, then policy won't change so that out-of-school time programs are funded. There is currently not even a funding stream in the state of Virginia to support quality out-of-school time programs. That's a shame, because that's saying from a policy point of view that we don't think that learning happens in out-of-school time. So we don't fund it and we don't pay any attention to it. So I think looking at fresh eyes is going to break down some of those policy barriers that stand in the way and create the competition.
And sometimes we have to move beyond expecting someone else to pay for it, do we not? Yes. Is that, you know, and do it ourselves. This lady in the back.
Good evening, my name is Rachel Hunter from Chesapeake. I'm a probation officer, I'm also a mentor. A lot of the parents that I work with and their children do not feel supported at school. And so if you have that sense of not feeling supported, then the behaviors are going to be shown. I think also the economics that plays a part. We talk about the children not attending school, but we have kids, a lot of my kids, transportation is an issue. The lights may not be on at home. There may not be food. So unless we deal with the core issues, I think we're going to have a lot more issues until we address those
those issues.
core issues.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What I'm wondering is if the people that are watching at home, if they're wondering some of the things we've talked about, like how do I start? And when the gentleman beside me here talked about the woman over here about literacy, and he was talking about the ripple effect. And as a writing teacher, there's an expression that says if there is a book that you want to read that isn't written, you should write it. So if there's a program that doesn't exist, you can start it. And I want to tell you that there's a program that's 1 year old in Chesapeake called Chesapeake's Kids, and it was that ripple effect that you're talking about, because we are about to go into our 3rd Title I school in Chesapeake tomorrow and take over 2,000 books that have been donated. And here's the real cool thing about the ripple effect. It started in a church as a ministry. Just somebody saw a need, just from a conversation, a card that I gave her telling her thank you for helping my classroom get books. And then it just, it snowballed. And it snowballed so much that a conversation from someone talked to someone in Northern Virginia, and now there's a teenager who has collected over 2,000 books and has more. It's snowballing.
It keeps going and
Yes.
going and going.
And so if there's something you want to do, it's possible. You just have to cast that pebble.
Well, and that's the same thing that happened with you, Jamie. When you came to our community conversation, the right people happened to be in the room, did they not? And you had something else you wanted to add.
Well, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew, and especially the people who are watching too, hotelkids.org, we are trying to get that collaboration, and we're trying to make a list of all the resources. So if there's anybody out there who has resources and is a nonprofit, if you go to our website, we can sit there and try to connect the dots. And we're attempting to do that and grab as many people as we can and as many organizations as we can, because there could be a need somewhere, and there's 2 organizations that already have that done. And without having that link, there's so many kids that are falling through that gap. And by being able to encompass them and by being able to create this interwoven structure and support system, a lot of kids will be able to benefit from it.
Can I make the assumption that everybody in here, you're here because you care, right? I wonder what you would say to people in your sphere of influence to get them interested, to get them involved. This gentleman here.
Melvin Blackwell, you asked a question, could we go to the faith community? And surely that is a yes.
Yes, okay, good. We got 2 pastors in here said yes.
There is a demographic separation, I think, that we have in our communities. One thing about, as I would say, Sunday morning, is that that gap closes on Sunday morning. And it comes down to, is education important to that pastor? Because if education is not important to the pastor, then nothing will be promoted.
Very interesting point. Very interesting
and
point.
I think the promotion should go back out. It was said earlier in reference to what was effective a long time ago and what evidently is not effective now. And I think we've gotten away from caring communities. Okay, so community is really not community. So we stay in the communities, but we're not really living and caring in the communities. So I think that is very, very important. If we can push that agenda, I think we've become numb, if you will.
And I think you brought up a really good point about the leadership and how that can make a difference as to whether or not it is promoted, pushed, or whatever. Someone said, this gentleman here, yes.
Curtis Bethany, candidate for Newport News School Board. I've heard some great programs. I've heard the teachers stepping up. I've heard of parents wanting to step up. But it's kind of disheartening to know that the youth aren't stepping up. And to hear what they are doing is amazing, because I've been looking for other people and trying to get people around my age to be engaged about this. And I'm just so happy to hear, because he said he went to Warwick, I went to Woodside. So now I know we can work together on this cause. But it's just, we have to motivate the youth, because the youth have such a powerful voice that a lot of people, or we don't know. So if we go back and we help this, like the college students especially, so if we go back to our high schools, we go back to the elementary schools, peer-to-peer networking is great. It's amazing. It's probably the most powerful thing that we can do in regards to uplifting the younger people. So it's going to be our job. That we have to go and we have to go get them. We have to pull people that are our age, and we have to step up.
How do you tell the other guys that are your age that are like, oh man, I ain't got time for that?
Okay. It's not really a strategy to it, but it's sad to say
it's
that
a
you have to.
strategy to
Yeah, it is. But it's sad to say that you have to go through the cool ones for our generation in order to really get things moving.
Sure.
Hi, I'm
There
Brenda
you go.
Garrett from
Hi, Brenda.
Hampton. I'm really glad to hear people talking about the need for belonging and over here, and also what you're doing at Norview High School. And I think we're talking about systems almost too much. Individual children drop out of school. And so we have to be willing to say, what does this individual child need? And research tells us that they do need a caring, connected adult, someone who's going to believe in them. It may not be their parent. It doesn't have to be their parent, as long as they have someone who's committed to them and who will be there unconditionally and encourage them. The other thing we have to look at what we're doing in our schools, and we've set this system up for for decades, and it's clearly not working, is we're setting up children to fail. We tell them, if you don't have a B, or C, then you're a failure. And so how many of you want to go back to school every day when you have a D or an F because you have moved around from school to school and you weren't identified early on? And so we have to make sure that every child feels successful in some way, that they feel significant, they have talents that they can give. Not every child can pass the SOLs. The bell curve tells us that. But every child can feel connected, and every child can be valued and shown that they can learn.
Absolutely. Someone brought up the point too about, and a lot of these programs lead to college education and so forth. But we've also lost the trades. We've also lost because not everybody is going to go to college. Is there something, and this lady here?
My name is Camelia Moses Okpodu. I am a professor at the Norfolk State University on the Atlantic, where we achieve with excellence beyond measure. And I am a professor of biochemistry and biology. I'm in the biology department, and I run the Intelligence Community Center for Academic Excellence. And each summer, I run a 2-week biotechnology hands-on summer high school enrichment program. I take students who are transitioning from middle school to 9th grade, and those who are in 12th grade who have graduated. Been offering since 2006. We have integrated languages because we want our students to be able to understand that they live in a global world. What I've done over the years, I've not chosen the students who have necessarily have the resources where their parents could pay for them to have a summer experience. I take those kids who necessarily hadn't even thought about college. I go to the guidance counselors and I say, send me the kid that has the potential, because maybe all they need is to have an opportunity. They need to hear that what their skill set, the ability, the fact that they are able to do the video games. That's a skill set that we don't take advantage of.
Absolutely, thank you. I want to talk to the judge. What is the underlying theme that you say, I wish they had?
Everybody has talked about the student who probably has potential and needs the encouragement. And then there's concern about parental involvement. My current stressor is the number of dropout kids are those who are left behind, and many of you talked about the environment. How about those kids who are low achievers, special ed, but their parents are limited as well. So when you don't have a parent advocate, it's because they're limited. Their children are limited. So who's going to be the advocate for the child who really needs to be given an opportunity to know that there's something else? And I was really touched by the person who spoke about, do you feel that there's a need that education is for you? Not when you are 14 and 15, you've been left behind 2 times, and you probably have an IEP. Mm-hmm. And so your limitations define how do you feel that education is the way you're going to be pulled up from your bootstraps. Mm-hmm. That's my limitation.
Thank you so much. Do you agree with a lot of the things that have been said tonight?
I do, and one of the things that I've gathered since I've been sitting here, when you talk about skills and the like, those character traits, if we build the children from the inside out, then you're going to find that you're going to have a much healthier population of people who are going to be graduated from high school. You talk in terms of all the little resources and all those things. The peer-to-peer thing is very, very important, but also understanding and even looking. We have to have an opportunity, or we have to take the opportunities that are available to us to see what's behind the houses that we live in. Even in the community that I live in, I've never lived anywhere long enough to actually be a part of a community because we moved a whole lot. So I kind of understand that homeless thing. We weren't really homeless, but we moved a lot. I'm the first person from my household that actually went to college and now I actually have a master's. So there's a lot of different things. For me, education was key. It's the thing. I mean, I just ate education. So I love to listen to people talk about these things, but I'm also, while I'm sitting here, looking for opportunities to engage so that I can actually do the things that I love to do.
Fantastic, thank you.
Hi, my name is Kara Wong. I'm a high school student in Virginia Beach. And I just wanted to touch on the point of what the individuals, we as the youth, can do. I feel like we should take the initiative and look for resources, reach out to teachers. Like, I talk to my teachers after class, kind of break the ice with them so that it's easier to go to them for help, for whatever we need. I feel like teachers are actually very personable. When you get to know them, they relate. They've been through what we've been through. Mm-hmm. We just need to break the ice and talk to them.
And if you have a classmate or someone who feels like they can't, can you also encourage them to help them to be able to do that? Thank you so much for sharing that. We appreciate that. One more up here.
I'm Kate Meekin. I'm the Executive Director for Volunteer Hampton Roads. And I've heard a lot of talk about, especially in the beginning, talking about people wanting to give back and how do we get involved, and whether or not we can get into the schools. Can we volunteer with some of these other programs? The answer is yes. We do have a volunteer center in Hampton Roads. We've been around since 1957. We connect businesses, and I see some of my business friends. They have employees that want to be involved with these programs and involved with the schools, and we help make those matches. We also connect the nonprofits. We support them. When they need volunteers, we find the volunteers for them. And we have a database on our website of opportunities. You can go and find an opportunity to give back and to serve. We're hoping that our next step is figuring out a way to work more cohesively with the schools. Many of the schools have great ways that they work with volunteers. Other schools are struggling with it. So how can we as the resource center bring the school systems together, not just in Norfolk, but in Virginia Beach, in Suffolk, in Portsmouth, all of our communities. So we're all kind of on the same page with how we get these talented individuals that want to give back to our students in the same way in the schools. Yep.
Hi, I'm Lewis Morris in Hampton, Virginia. I'm involved in a number of education foundations, the Hampton Education Foundation and the New Horizon Education Foundation and the Old Dominion Education Foundation. I hear everybody tonight and I see the passion really in this room coming from educators and nonprofit organizations, the clergy, and it's exciting and it does get you motivated. Mm-hmm. And as a business leader, I think it's very important that we hear what the message is tonight and do something about it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that all of you all should give yourselves a round of applause. Absolutely. You know, unfortunately, this conversation has been great, but our time is just about up. But I want to take time to thank everyone who came out tonight to the town hall, and a special thanks also to those of you who joined us online and through social media with your questions and comments. We shared a lot of great ideas and hopefully opened the door to change. Now is the time to ask yourself, am I doing all that I can to turn the dropout epidemic in my community around? If the answer is no, hopefully we've given you some ideas for moving forward. As I mentioned at the start, the reason we're doing this is to help our community respond to critical issues and move forward solutions. We will compile everything that we've heard from you tonight and during the community conversations, and we'll deliver recommendations for action that you have identified as important for improving student outcomes. It will then be up to all of us to work together to make it happen. Together, we can ensure that more of our children graduate from high school on time and prepared to lead productive lives. Let's make it happen. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this American Graduate Community Town Hall. Good night, everybody. And thank you all very, very much.